Good morning. Have you got your cup of coffee? Because it's time for another Missions Minute. The other day we talked about reaching the nations, and we had a definition of the word missions, to be sent. Then we found out that God intends for all Christ followers to be intentional about reaching the nations for Christ. If we're going to spread the gospel, then we're going to need a plan, and the plan's going to take resources. It takes money and effort to be involved in reaching people for the gospel. Since the early work of the church, missionaries needed support. They're just like you and me. We need to eat. We need clothes. We need shelter. Missionaries need all the same things that anybody else needs to survive. The Bible speaks about other Christians getting involved in the support of missionaries who are going out to spread the gospel a long time ago. We can find it in 2 Corinthians 8, 1 through 5. I want to read it to you. And now, brothers, we want you to know about the grace that God has given the Macedonian churches. Out of the most severe trial, their overflowing joy and their extreme poverty welled up in rich generosity. For I testify that they gave as much as they were able and even beyond their ability. Entirely on their own, they urgently pleaded with us for the privilege of sharing in this service and to the saints. And they did not do as we expected, but they gave themselves first to the Lord and then to us in keeping with God's will. That's incredible. I want to tell you another story. It's about the Mizoram people in northern India. They were first reached by two Scottish missionaries in 1894. Mizoram is a very hilly, very heavily forested area, and it was difficult to get around. The other thing is the Mizo people were animistic. They had no written language. The missionaries started putting together an alphabet and a written language, and at the same time they were developing and translating the Bible for the Mizo people. Within a short period of time, Mizos were coming to know Christ. The Mizos realized that they had been blessed to have been reached with the gospel by these other two missionaries. So they thought, we ought to send out a missionary, our own Mizo missionary. But how could they do it? They were so poor. They came up with an idea. You know, God's got a lot of good ideas. So when the women were preparing the meal of rice for the family, they only ate rice. It was the mainstay of their food. Very poor people. They'd scoop out a cup of rice for one person in the family. They'd scoop out another cup of rice for the other person in the family. Scoop out another cup of rice for Pop. And then they would scoop out a cup of rice for missions, put it in a bowl, and set it aside. At the end of the week, they would take all that rice for missions, and they would take it to the church, everybody, and the church would sell that rice in hopes of supporting a missionary. Their heart was to send out one missionary from the Mizo people. That was 100 years ago. Today, 87% of the Mizo people are born-again believers. And today, the Mizo people are sending out 8,000 to 10,000 missionaries around the globe, all from one cup of rice. We should never think that we're too poor to be involved in supporting missions. We need to get creative and think of some ways that God can use our gifts and our resources and our abilities to reach others for Christ. We just need to think outside the box. So, until all have heard, I'll see you tomorrow.